Hey, this is Nathan Young, founder and author of How to Be Second. And this is 1 Second, a conversation between two people with wildly different identities, reacting raw to questions from people like you, and exploring how we are different while embracing that we're better together. In our vernacular at How to Be Second, I am a second, and my co host, Mondo Davison, is a natural one I see.
Oh man, Nathan, like today, I'm so excited to have this conversation because this feeling that humans have when they want to or when they need to feel gratified or gratitude or like be poured into, right? And so, because we've heard of love languages, like let's just stick with that theme. And so, for the audience, if you have not read the book around love language, like let me give you the baseline of it. So, there's 5 love languages defined in the book. Actually, I don't even know the author of that book. I don't know if you know, Nathan, but the 5 love languages are words of affirmation, physical touch, acts of service, gift giving, and what is the 5th one? I'm trying to think of the ones that I said. Words of affirmation, acts of service, gift giving, physical touch,
Quality time.
quality time. Bingo.
And the author is Gary Chapman.
Got it. Shout out to Gary Chapman. So, when I ask this question to people and then I say mine back, there's this like surprising, like, really? Like that's your thing? Right? So like I'm very curious as two people who are on opposite ends of the spectrum when it comes to love language. What is yours and how do they impact you?
It'll be funny to react to this because this is something I've dug into a lot in sort of like my journey of self. And it has been really impactful throughout my entire, like my relationship with my wife. And it's actually something that I've made a core part of matchmaking for How to Be Second. And I can tell some stories around that. So for me, I have an answer. I have a lot of answers. And then I'm curious how to ping pong this. So for me, acts of service is mine. And one of the ways that love languages work, as I understand it, is that it's kind of like a pie chart. There's a little bit of like a priority and then a pie chart. So like acts of service takes up 80% of my pie chart. And then there's some relevance to the other ones. Like I appreciate gifts, I appreciate words, but like acts of service is so far and away that if I didn't get any of the other ones, that one would pretty much hold me down most of the time.
Yeah.
Samantha is hilariously, Samantha is exactly the opposite. Samantha, my wife, is exactly the opposite of that. She's words of affirmation, the big buy. And so it makes it easy for us to dismiss all of the ones in between. Like neither of us really cares that much about gifts. Like quality time is good, but like we've established a lot of ways to do that anyway. And so like that's easy. But we can be like alone together really easily. But like words of affirmation for her, huge. Acts of service for me, huge. And we are opposites. Acts of service for her, irrelevant. Words of affirmation for me, mostly irrelevant. And it's really weird because it really is like marrying someone where I speak English and they speak Spanish. And like, we're not bilingual. We're just desperately trying to figure it out over the course of our relationship.
Yo, let me hop in for a second because this is so real. Because actually, mine is the same as acts of service, right? And to your point, 80% of the pie, acts of service. Yes, and I struggle with other humans whose love language is words of affirmation. And one of the
Yep.
biggest reasons why is because, like, my number one advocate growing up was my dad. And, like, my dad, acts of service and quality time, right? Like, he was always present at everything I did. And, like, he just always served. Like, how can I help, son? How can I be there? What can I do? Like, that was his jam. But my dad rarely, I mean, I think when I was going off to college was the one time I remember my dad saying, "I love you, son," or like just pouring into me with words. And it's not that he never said good job, but it was always like work harder, do better. Like there's always room for growth. And so words of affirmation isn't something that was frequently said around me. But if I heard it like once or twice a year, like I was like, oh, I'm good for the year. And so I
Yeah.
struggle because some humans who need words of affirmation, I don't even have like a barometer to be like, oh, you needed me to say 3 things today? Like, I'm used to
Yeah.
3 things the whole year. And so I'm curious, like, with you and Samantha, is there or was there a gap along the way where you really had to work that muscle to, like, meet your partner in a meaningful way?
Along the way to yesterday. Like, let me tell a couple of stories of this. What one? I think everybody knows this, or at least a decent amount of people who would listen to this do. But so you and I worked together at one point, right? And this plays into a whole other conversation that I would love to have at some point about the idea of opportunity creators. And because I think you are one, and I haven't been one, but I want to be one, and that's a whole thing we can talk about. But this idea of love languages, like, it makes very clear sense to me why, like, the way that we move together, aside from the fact that it's just you're just fun to be around and I like you, uh is like, okay, you do stuff, I do stuff that speaks to the other person. When I've had some first in commands where, like, our languages either were also the same, or but we had different levels of sort of grace about that, or like our languages were really different, and that caused the different languages without having the ability to talk about that is what has caused like dramatic rift. And so, like, an example for Samantha and I, we've just been talking about this again recently. We were having a disconnect. I wouldn't call it an argument, I would call it a disconnect. We were having a disconnect and we were trying to figure that out. And I was like, I understand that doing this thing is making you frustrated. So, how do I do more of what is good and focus on doing more of what is good and don't focus on doing less of what is bad?
Uh,
And her response was, well, like, this is something we very are familiar with. And her response was like, well, words of affirmation is my love language, like, just do more words of affirmation. And I told her, I don't understand what you just said. Like, that seems like the most obvious possible thing that you could, you're just like, oh, I feel the exact same. If I said, well, acts of service, and she would be like, I already am desperately trying
yeah.
to do that thing. And so, like, this was like within the last few weeks, we've been having this conversation where I literally looked at her. So we struggled with this, right? So I said that, she said that. We weren't having an argument, but we were definitely having this disconnect of like, how do we do this better? And how do we focus on doing this better? And I finally came back to her and said, do you have like an inner monologue of words, like in your brain? Like when you're thinking, do you think in words? And she was like, well, yeah, of course. I have an inner monologue running 100% of the time. And I was like, don't ever, I don't hear words in my brain. It's literally not how my brain works. I think in like connections and patterns and feelings and scenarios, and I can play like whole movies in my head, but I don't talk. I don't have an inner monologue like that. Is literally my brain doesn't process information in that way. And so a lot of the time, part of the reason this podcast is so fun is because I'm literally creating my talk track as I'm talking. I'm processing with language a bunch of words and like a bunch of feelings and thoughts and whatever. Sometimes I've been called out for this. I say things 2 or 3 times in slightly different ways. I'm doing it right now. I'll repeat myself saying the exact same thing in slightly tweaked versions. And people are like, Nathan, you just keep saying the same thing. And I'm like, I know, but it's because I couldn't hear myself say it until I said it the first time. Like, I don't have words in my head. Literally, there are no words. And that sounds insane for a person who talks so much or writes so much or whatever. But it was one of the disconnects. And so I just looked at her and I was like, is it okay if I just process my feelings out loud at you? Because I think words of affirmation is like these pre-packaged set of words. And I was like, I don't have them.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's so hard for me to give you words because I literally do not have them. I have to say the words. I've left her like little handwritten notes for a really long time. It's a practice that I started, I don't know, years ago. She probably has a whole shoebox full of these things. I try to give her like one every week or two. And this is a very difficult thing for me. Sometimes I'll write it on a separate sheet of paper like a couple of times, and then finally I'll get something onto the actual note card. Simple stuff. Thanks for doing this for me yesterday. This is so great, right? I'm like, this is so hard because I have to do it. I have to iterate on that a few times to where I can get a clean thing to say.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, if it's okay for me to just talk at you and to like come up with a clean thing to say, can I do that? She was like, yeah, of course you can. And I was like, well, I didn't think that I had that ability. Like I
Well,
had to get
and
permission to say all this random shit.
it's super fascinating to
Yeah.
just hear you say that out loud, first of all. Like all day, every day, I have a million talk tracks. I have talk tracks about things that are present, things that may happen in the future, things, just scenarios that I make up. And I'm just like, yo, what is the narrative? Like, if God just dropped a stranger in front of me right now that asked me the most ridiculous question, like I'm going through that back and forth dialogue in my head because I just feel like that is what brings me a lot of joy and kind of that connective tissue that you're talking about of like how my brain works. It is all in words. So then to hear you say, I do the same thing, but I don't use the same foundational tool, right? Like you use systems, you use other like connective tissue. And so I'm just like, yo, that's super fascinating. But it also highlights why this 1 second duo like is needed, it's necessary, right? You just think about no matter what, there is not a single person, unless you're
Yep.
Jesus Christ, that like has
Yeah.
both sides, right? Like, and
Yes.
so how important it is and how valuable it is for that 1 second or that partnership to have these type of conversations for a Nathan to be like, bro, I don't even think in words. And for me to be like, what in what do you think about like how, like I personally right now, as you were saying it, I'm sitting there like, is there literally like a hexagon and an octagon and like somehow you like visualize these shapes coming together and like the system and this like lucid chart that's
Yes.
happening?
Yes.
That's crazy. Like, I have
Right.
had a lucid chart in my brain any day of any year forever. So this is wild. Okay.
Yes. Yes, that's actually how I think, not just in flowcharts, because that's helpful. But yes, I don't have words. I don't have a monologue. I have feelings and intuitions and connectivity and scenarios and lots of pictures. I play movies in my head a lot, but there are no words. There's sound, but there's not words. If that makes any sense.
But let me
I don't
ask a
know what
question.
anybody's gonna say. I never know.
So let me ask a question. As a second who already have this picture complete, but your first in command doesn't, has that one gotten you in trouble? Did you have to learn to exercise patience? Did you just say, like, here's the answer, like, get on my level? Like, what are some things that you had to learn over time, whether it's with your one or even with like other employees or partners that you may be working with? I just feel like because your mind works in a certain way, there's a different level of, there's something else you have to exercise that maybe I don't have to exercise.
Totally. Well, I want to turn the question back on you. I'll say this. I'll give you a couple of examples, and then I would ask you the same question. And that is, so the answer is yes. And I would say that I did it really poorly prior, and having this framework has really helped. Part of why we've made it part of a key part of matchmaking is because we feel like it actually gives you a way to like understand where the other person is coming from, what they're trying to say, or the shape that they're trying to say those things in. So it's like, oh, I don't understand Spanish, but I know at least you're speaking Spanish. And it has gotten me in trouble because I'm very acts of service. I've seen this in a lot of first and second pairings. Lots of firsts are, or one ICs, right? I want to stick to my own identity based language. Lots of one ICs are words of affirmation, where they have that really high up, and they will tell their second in command how awesome they are, how great a job they're doing, how like they'll give them all of these affirmations, and they will consistently do different shit. They won't follow up on the execution. They won't like recognize the actual work that is getting done. And so like the second, and I've been this person, the second will keep grinding in their language. They'll keep doing and doing and doing and not talking. And the one I see will keep talking and talking and talking and not doing. And they're both trying to tell the other person that they care about them by doing the thing, by speaking their language louder and
Yeah.
right, like at each other.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, that's exactly right. It's
Yeah.
just whoosh, right? It's just someone screaming Spanish at you
Yeah.
and then being like, why is this relationship falling apart? And it's that exact feeling. I had that with one of my friends, a one I see that I think that I worked with for a long time. His name is Bill McElhaney. And he was the lead pastor of our church. He led our band. He was a singer and a guitar player, like really good. Helped teach me how to like play the drums. I'm a drummer for anybody who didn't know that. And like, but he was one of those people. And he was very much a words of affirmation and whatever. And like, not honestly that great at sort of like following Mr.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there were several of us on the team that were very clearly seconds. And now that I have that language, we were very much obviously acts of service type people, except for one guy who's very clearly a words of affirmation guy. They were both words of affirmation people, and they had the best relationship in the entire building, and they always did throughout the entirety of time that I worked with them, which was like 7 or 8 years. The rest of us thought that Mac was like an incredible leader and he had so many talents, and we thought he was galvanizing and inspiring, and we loved what his vision was, and we were doing the thing we all wanted to, but also he just drove us fucking insane. And that was the disconnect constantly, was that we just kept doing and doing, but we never said things like, good job, we're proud of you, you do so, like you're so inspiring. We never told him any of those things. We were just like, well, isn't it obvious? We're doing the work.
Yeah.
So we just kept doing the work harder.
Oh, okay. So this is a really important question from a one I see first visionary type to a very balanced second. In a season, let's just say, Nathan, if you and I are working together and these things are happening between us, what's one thing that I can do to actually like step in the right circle or step on the right line? Like, how do I approach you? How do I at least start? Because I imagine like a first in command is listening to this and they're like, dang, is this me? And so then if they're like, yeah, this is probably me, the next question would be, what am I supposed to do next? Right. And so like, what is something that you just feel like is very simple and tangible for that one I see to do next once they're aware that this is
Totally. The first thing I would say is your gut instinct is to be like, well, this is a professional relationship. And I would say to you, bullshit, everything is people, right? You bring you to everything you do.
Yeah, yeah.
And so if you're like, it's just work, just get the work done. No, fuck you. Like, this is people. You're a person too,
Yeah.
you asshole
Yeah.
who's saying that right now. You're probably an acts of service person, like, right? So the first thing I would say is the most important thing to do is like, know thyself. If you don't know what yours is, it's a really short book. There's like a 3-minute quiz. Like, figure it out. And then ask them to do it. If you're in conflict with a person, if you're in whatever, if you're having this moment of disconnect, especially if you feel like you're working so hard at it, then like get them to do it too. So know yourself and then have them do it. And then the only other thing I would add to that is anytime I've approached that, like I'm slapping the wrist of someone, it doesn't matter that I'm doing something that is good. It comes off bad. So approach it like you are invested in making the communication better, right? That you're like, not like you have found an answer and that you need the other person to get on your level.
Yeah. Yeah.
That you're like, it feels like we're having a disconnect. At the end of the day, disconnect is always person and communication. And so like, how can we keep talking? But I need to understand your language better. Are you willing to do this with me?
I love
and
that.
If anytime I've approached it like that, even just very recently, that goes well, even if it takes work. Because at the end of the day, I mean, like I've seen lots of first in commands who are like acts of service people, and they're doing all of these favors, and their second in command is a gifts person, and so they're like, the second in command is like, when are you going to pay me more? And the first in command is like doing the stuff, and especially like if you have a second in command who is a gifts person, they might even be giving you gifts, but they're like constantly going, I'm not doing well because you haven't given me a raise. And they may even start to do less because they're feeling uncared for. And the first in command is watching their second in command perform worse. And so then they're less likely to give them a raise. It is a vicious cycle that this disconnect is the core of why first and second in commands end up in divorce.
I feel like this is really one of the most powerful conversations we will have, or a first in command and a second command to just step in and be like, yeah, let's start here, right? Like we're having challenges, we're having troubles. What's the one episode we need to listen to for this pod? I feel like it's going to be this one and this session. So this was good.
Cool. I do, before we let this go, and I know this whole section is kind of running along. Maybe our producer will edit it enough, but like, I don't want to let it go before I turn it on you and say, can you give me an example from your life where either you have done this well or done this poorly, or like, what is this calling up for you?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I would double down on many of the things that you just said. And when you think about that pie for me, right? If acts of service is 80%, probably the biggest next piece of the pie is quality time. And so I feel like between you and I, one of our biggest assets is spending quality time outside of work. Like we said early on, like we're working together and we are friends. And I want to get to know you as a human being, and you want to get to know me as a human being. So, to your point, when we get to that intersection where it's like we're speaking past each other, it's like, hey, Nathan, do you just want to go bowling? Or like, is something going on with you and Samantha and the kids or Mondo? Like, are you okay? Like, and so there is just this care that is developed through quality time. And again, to your point, like everything is relationship. Everything is relationship. Because if we ever got to a point where like I walked in and I saw you and looked at your face and I'm like, yo, this looks like dread. Like, or like you depressed today? It's F the work today, right? Like, let's go spend some quality time to make sure that like you're good as a person. And so I just feel like at 1 second has to spend that quality time and like again, stamp of approval to you and the how to be second team when it comes to matchmaking. Like quality time is at the core, the essence of like how do we bring two people together? Because if they don't spend any quality time together, you're just never going to know. And
Yep.
everything about what you're doing, what we're doing when it comes to working together on matchmaking and bringing ones and seconds together, I feel like it's built on that foundation of relationship.
Yep. 1,000%. All right. I'm going to honor that. I'm going to leave it there. And I'm going to ask the next question. And that is, when you are getting, giving, accepting help, how do you deal with help? How do you deal with the idea of help in all of its forms? What rises up in you when I ask that question?
So to piggyback from last question, right? Acts of service is at my core. And so giving help, like a service to another human, is just at the core and essence of who I am. Like if I feel like somebody is stuck, I want to give my time through words, though. Like, let me say that I have definitely made a clear line that if somebody is like, I'm about to move a 5 bedroom house, do you want to help? No, I do not. And it's easy for me to say that. So, one, I have a clear line on how I help because I want to make sure that the way that I help does not deplete me. That is important for me. Secondly, though, accepting help in this season of life, I have gotten very comfortable with accepting help because God put me through a season where I had to ask for it frequently. So,
Mm.
like, let me color the lines a little bit. So, if somebody's stepping into this conversation for the first time, I have lived a great life, middle class family, never struggled with anything, a lot of love. And because of that, I feel like God challenged me to get to 6 figure lifestyle, feeling good about life, and asked me to surrender everything for an indeterminate amount of time. And so, doing that, going through that challenge, I had to ask for help so much from so many people, and it made me feel so uncomfortable. It's like musical chairs and like sitting in these different seats, but my whole life never having to sit in a seat where like asking for help was like a foundational seat that I had to sit in. And it created a level of empathy that I will never forget because of how hard it is. Like, even to you, Nathan, like over the past 3 years, I literally had to call Nathan and say, hey, man, like we hang out, we business together, but like as a human, like I need some help, like actual, like fundamental bill paying help. And like to call and even ask you that is so hard because it's like we've been knowing each other for like 4 years, but it's not like, oh man, I've been knowing Nathan since I've been 5 years old, where it might be easier. Like you're my cousin. It's just this new relationship, and I've exhausted everything else. And God's like, well, you have a second who said he got your back no matter what. And I'm like, yeah, but for this though, you know?
Yeah.
And so like there's this pause where it's just like I had to reflect and be like, God's always going to give me what I need. God's always going to surround me with the people that I need. And even if Nathan says no, that's for our relationship to strengthen, for either him to say no because he doesn't feel comfortable doing it, or no because he doesn't have it, or whatever. But I have to lean in and say the words and ask the question for our relationship to grow. For
Mm-hmm.
context, Nathan is an amazing human. And he was like, yeah, man, how can I help? Give, and has never asked for anything back. And I am extremely grateful for it. But it didn't have to go that way. And if it didn't, I then have to not take it personal. I have to be like, oh, okay, well, that's his line. Like the same way that I had a line, like, I am not going to help you move a 5 bedroom house. Your line may be like, financially, I am never going to support you in that way. And I have to be okay with that. And so when it comes to help, I am an extreme giver. I have fine lines for myself. And because of it, I recognize that if somebody else has a hard line on something, I have to respect that hard line. So like I think that's my soapbox answer to that. But like I'm very passionate about those words.
Okay, so I could stop there and just like shut it down. Like I would be happy. And also, I'm going to dig in because frankly, I have some recent feelings on this one. Well, they're not recent, but they're recently again. So, how do you how do you personally deal with when you are saying stuff out loud when you're being real or raw and someone tries to solve it for you, but you were not asking for that?
That's good. That's good because I imagine that because I have this problem solving mentality, not I imagine, let me say that better. Historically, I've probably been that person. And so I got to a point in my just growth and development that when somebody says, like, Mondo, I need to talk to you, I'm like, are you asking me this question to be a listening ear? Or do you want me to offer you a solution to the problem? And like, I'm very intentional to ask that because sometimes they just want a listening ear. Now, if I call somebody and I say some things out loud that I can't solve, I'm actually at a point where I need some words, right? Like, I'm just like, I've spent enough time by myself. I prayed enough. And so if I'm bringing it to another human, I'm literally asking God, please, through Nathan, say some words that's going to like spark something else so I can get closer to this solution. So I don't think I've ever been in a scenario that like really rises to the top where I've said something out loud and somebody overstepped in their help because I'm actually looking for something. But I do tell people, I even said this last week because somebody said like, hey, I'm really good at discerning certain things when I feel like God has a word that I'm supposed to tell you, Mondo. And I said, really? I said, well, here's what I need from you. It's almost, I can say this with like 99% certainty in my spiritual journey. If you come to me and you say, here are 10 words that just came to me from God, the last 3 words are the most important. The first 3 are the most important to me. Like what you emphasize and what you think I'm actually supposed to hear and what I'm supposed to move on is never almost the thing that I'm actually supposed to hear. Like it's more of like this subtle tone or this like odd nuance. And like you're like, all right, God told me that when you were playing at the park next to the castle, and then you tell like this long story of what I was supposed to do. And like you're really emphasizing like this action. And I'm like, oh, the castle, right? Oh, okay, it makes sense. Thank you for putting the castle in my awareness, and I'm good. And so like that's just like the best way that I can answer that. I don't take it personal when somebody's trying to help because I know it's coming from a good place. Yes, and I was already good after you said castle.
Yeah.
But it sounds like there has been some moments where some humans have really overstepped and tried to solve your problems and it doesn't feel good. Is that what I'm receiving?
Well, Yes, of course. And like, and I think that I'm extra sensitive to that because I am an acts of service person, right? So when I do feel like I'm pretty good at both asking for and providing in a tactical way. And even like I've done a lot of work to get good at that in languages that are not natively mine. And I think what has happened to me recently is, and this is all very fascinating to me, is that like there are ways that I am actively asking for help, and then there are ways that people are offering help. And I'm like, hang on, I didn't ask for help, and you're offering it. You're trying, like, you're being right or giving me a correction or saying you could jump in that spot. So, like, but you're not doing the thing I'm actively asking out loud. So you're not helping when I am asking the way that I am asking. You are trying to help for things that I am not asking for. Who is this help for?
Yo, I'm laughing because the way that you're talking brought me back. And please jump in, Nathan. But there's a season in life where there's not enough people baking the cake. Do you remember that season?
The
You're just
cake
like
makers, yes.
the cake makers. And so what I'm hearing you say is like sometimes you're asking for somebody to step in and make the cake, and they're like, well, I can go buy some icing, I can go get the container, I can go do all these things, but you're like, you're not doing the thing that I'm actually asking you for.
Yes.
Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, totally. Or they like I bet, and they won't now that they've said it, assuming they listen to this part. I bet there are people who, if I didn't say what I'm about to say, they would get in touch with us after this episode and they would listen to this bit and they would have listened to the bit that I just said and they would email me and let me know ways that I could ask better. Like they would solve a problem I do not have because they once again, who is this help for? Right? Like I know you know. Keep it to your fucking self. Like I'm not asking for that help. Like if you had come to me and been like, "Nathan, I need rent money. Would you be willing to support me with dollars on rent?" And I had come back to you and said, "Well, not I won't give you rent money and I won't give you a place to sleep. But I'm a pretty good marketer. So, what I can do though is that I could set you up with a webinar and some messaging for how to ask for rent money better to other people." Man, fuck you.
Oh man. Oh, that's good. That is good. Yeah, in recent memory, I have not dealt with that challenge, and I can see why that would make somebody quite furious and frustrated. That is funny.
Here's what I here's
Huh.
the thing that is really getting me about this. And that
Okay.
is I think these people are genuine. I think I am this person and I have been this person, right?
Mhm.
So like definitely hear me say I smell my own. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I'm so sensitive because I'm so uncomfortable about the reality of who I am recognizing this behavior. And this is so insulting to the person who has done the work that you were talking about earlier. Like you unpacked how uncomfortable it was for you to ask for help in the first place, especially as
yeah,
someone who like loves giving. And the idea of you having done the work to get clear enough to make an ask and to overcome like the potential, like the shame, the whatever, the like, there's so many levels to being willing to make an ask in the first place, to genuinely actually ask for help. And then the person helping, like, sidelining that and giving you what agenda they're just carrying out their own agenda on you. You just gave they're effectively using your ask as a permission to carry out their own agenda. And like I'm on the receiving end of that a decent amount. And I think anyone who asks for help is. And here's the other thing. I'm in a community of people. I mean, I'm leading a community of people who are helpers. That's like part of our shtick is that like oh, one ICs or first in commands or whatever are out here and they're having the mess and we bring order to the chaos. And we have all these stupid fucking phrases that we use to say, I'm going to clean up all the Legos that you spilled on the floor. And like, that's the value that I bring is that you're a rocket booster and I am the way that we harness that energy. And that's incredible and amazing. And you and I talk constantly about like how good that is. And also, when you have an identity of being a helper, it's almost like if you aren't being a helper, there's something that you're losing, even though nobody asked for that shit. And and you suck at asking. Like if your identity is wrapped up in the helping and you're never asking, it's real obvious. And so like I'm like, "Oh, so like you don't need anything ever and you won't do the thing I'm asking you to do, which I got over my need for, like so that
Yeah.
what you said about like the person telling the entire story and you taking the one bit just resonated so intensely with me because I was like, right, you needed what you needed, and they
Yep.
told a 5-minute story that served their agenda.
Facts. And they, knowing that they didn't do it maliciously, right? Like they're thinking that they're in service, and you're saying that, like they think
Yes.
that they're in service.
Yes.
And that kind of goes to like how we all fall into our own blind spots, thinking that we are doing right by others or to others. But the reality is, we consistently step on the line, right? And so there is something so true about what you're saying. And as you're telling the story, I'm just reflecting on myself and the value that I actually bring to others. And reflecting now when like people ask me for help, and I'll just go to like our last interaction where you were just like, "Hey, Mondo, I got some words, help," or like, "Give me some words back." And when you sent what you said some weeks back, I'm like, Nathan doesn't struggle with putting the Legos together, right? So there's not a, well, did you think about this? Well, I know he already thought about that. Like, don't don't disrespect his intelligence. I was just like, oh, bro, like maybe you're just supposed to pause, right? Like, just how about you just stop for a day or two? And so, like, my strength is being able to find peace in silence. And you know how to do that. And I was just like, well, let me offer something that maybe you haven't done yet. And so, that to me was a situation where I think a person who is trying to help and they don't have the answer is hoping that this random thing that they say might be the thing that helps you break through, but maybe 90% of the time it doesn't. Like I had no idea of being like, yo, bro, why don't you just pause? Like it didn't make any sense, but you're just like, that was what I needed. So like, I don't know. Help is just so interesting. Let me just say this to like close my section of this. I believe that no matter what, as we navigate life, we're eventually going to have to ask for help. Yes, and I truly believe that if you continue to elevate your character or you hit that next level in life or whatever it is, inevitably you're going to have to ask for help in an environment in which you dislike or disdain or you have hate for, or there's some type of relational challenge that you're like, I would never ask that person or that type of person, or I would never go into that situation. And that never land that you build, that you've been saying for the last 20 years, is the environment that you're going to have to tuck your tail in and go in and ask help and maybe even hear them say no. And now you feel like, dang, like if I wasn't an asshole for the last 20 years to these type of people, maybe I would have gotten the help. Or, which is how like love stories typically work, you go in and you ask those people or that type of person or that one person that you've hated forever, and they're like, of course, bro. Like, I've always been here for you. You've just built this narrative in your head on why you don't like or love me. And I've always been willing to support. And so, whoever you are, wherever you're at, I say, like, go ask for help and go do it in an environment that is the most uncomfortable. And once you experience asking for help in that environment where you're so uncomfortable, I feel like God, like, literally unlocks something. And it's like, finally, you went and did a thing that you were terrified of because you didn't want to be turned down by the person who you've been shunning from the beginning. So,
Yep. I don't have a name in my head, but I do have feelings. I have feelings like there's going to be a name in my head soon. All right. All right. I'm going to honor it and I'm going to put it down right there.
That was good, man. I love this episode.
Hey, it's Nathan again. If you made it to the end, that's awesome. I have a couple ways you can go deeper if you're interested. If you resonated with the way that Nathan talked about himself, I am Nathan, you might be what we call a second. This is an identity, not a role. We have a couple ways to dig into that curiosity. You can take our Am I a Second assessment on our website at howtobesecond.com/assessment. It is directional, not definitive. You can grab the book, How to Be Second, from our website or Amazon or almost anywhere you like to buy books, including on audio, read by the authors, myself and David Hartman. If you resonated with Mondo, I have a couple things for you as well. Secondseat.org focuses on sponsoring seconds to be able to sit in the second seat at youth-focused impact organizations to help them scale. Second Seat is always looking to talk to community impact organizations who are interested in getting a second, and for funding groups who want those types of organizations to succeed. If you're a for-profit, How to Be Second has a matchmaking, not recruiting, service where we make connections between first and seconds, where there's a relationship, energy, skill, and compensation match. Finally, if you're inspired by what we're doing here, you can support How to Be Second at howtobesecond.com/support. Thanks again. I'm looking forward to our next conversation.